Okay, so today we're going to debunk some ridiculous guitar myths. So, let's get it. Also, before we get too far in here, I have a question for you. What are some common myths that you think are just ridiculous on a guitar? I'd be curious to see what you guys have to say. The other thing is we are running a sale on my membership, which gets you all of my guitar courses, so check that out if you would. That is going to be linked down below for you. And let's just jump on in, and if you want to, hit the subscribe button. So let's talk about these myths. Alright, so myth number one is that buying signature gear will actually make you sound like the artist. And that's totally not true. There's some level of like, okay, yeah, this is probably similar to their pickup, their amp, all that kind of stuff. But if you really want to sound like someone, you want to try to replicate their sound, learning how they actually play and the mannerisms and just the concepts that they use when they're playing is the biggest way to sound like them. You can sound like Eddie Van Halen on a Les Paul, on a Strat, on a Telecaster, or on an EVH Frankie, but at the end of the day, you gotta learn how to play like him, not just play the gear like him. Now, next is that you need good or expensive gear in order to be good, and that is totally not true. You can get by on so many great budget-friendly items nowadays because gear has just advanced a lot. Now, you could take a very inexpensive guitar, the best thing you'll ever do for it is have it set up very well. Now, if that's not something you're comfortable doing yourself, take it to a tech, they can do it, or this is a great opportunity to learn how to set up your guitars to how you like them, because most of the time, guitars just need set up versus needing a new guitar. It's very much like cameras. You know, a lot of times you just need a better light. Spend $50 on the light instead of spending $500 on getting a new camera with the same crappy light. So with guitars, a lot of times your guitar just needs set up. So I would invest more in setting up your gear versus just trying to buy more gear and use what you have. Okay, so the next one is the classic tone is in the hands. And I think sometimes people take this extremely literally, and I think it is meant to some degree that way, but when we're referring to tones in the hands, and I have a test here that I want to do because I'm going to show you guys something, that it's just about the way that people play guitar. Like, you know, the way that you choose to strike the note, pick the note, play the note. So what I did was, my wife also plays guitar. I had her, because the classic thing is everyone's like, if this person played a G chord and this person played a G chord, they would sound totally different. And what I wanted to do was just kind of put it to the test. So what you're going to hear is a G chord that my wife played, and then a G chord that I played, and I'm going to talk about it a little bit. Okay, so both of those sounded pretty similar, but they do sound different. And I will say, I think that, because again, the classic argument, if two people played the same G chord, they would sound totally different. If you could somehow have all the variables taken out and literally just have it like, okay, you're using the same pick with the same velocity, picked in the same spot, and it was just a G chord, there would be no difference. Or it'd be so subtle that it wouldn't be even worth mentioning. I think the whole tone is in the hand situation comes in when people are playing more complex lines and phrases. So if I was to play a melodic line or a bunch of chords together that require different dynamics out of me, that's whenever I'm going to be creating the tone that is in my hands. And that's how you would, you know, hear the differences in players. I think if you try to scale it down to something that is just like, okay, we're playing a G chord, we're playing them in the exact same spot, it's so subtle. So, and then a lot of people try to put like a ton of distortion on there. Distortion just masks everything. So, I don't know. Like I said, tone can be in the hands. I think it's not as simple as just like, oh yeah, we each play the same chord and it's gonna sound worlds apart. So, I don't know. What do you guys think about that one? Okay, so this one's always one of my favorites, is that people are just born with talent. I wish I could find it. I've been looking for it, but I can't find the clip. There's a really good Eddie Van Halen interview where the interviewer mentions that, you know, like, you're so talented, you were born with all this talent, and he's just like, I wasn't born with talent. He's like, I worked hard for this. And I actually think that the whole, you know, you're just born with talent kind of undermines how much work the player has put in, because nobody that you ever see that is like, you know, incredibly talented or just this amazing technician or musician, none of that came free. That has been them sacrificing hundreds of hours of their life to sit there and practice and try to get good. Think of any great guitarist. All of them say the same thing. Like, they used to practice 5, 6, 7, 8 hours a day. That's not just given to them. That is through putting their heart into something. So no one's just born with talent, but you can be born or taught work ethic, and that's how you get good. Now, the final one here is that you need big hands to play guitar. Now, if you look at guys like Angus Young, who had pretty small hands, I think he would disagree with that. Now, I think that people get caught up in having bigger hands because you can stretch your hand further. It's easier to reach frets that are further apart. But there are actually a lot of disadvantages to having bigger hands. So, for example, this is a 12-string electric guitar. Now, you might think bigger fingers are, you know, the good thing here. Now, luckily, I have kind of longer, skinny-ish fingers, but some people just have very thick fingers, like my dad did from being a construction worker his whole life. And, you know, like, this would give him trouble because his fingers are bigger. Even though his hand is big and he can stretch and do all these things, he's got bigger fingers. And also, having big, long fingers and all that stuff is great until you get up here. Then it kind of becomes a hindrance. So if you have smaller hands, I think one of the best things you can do is learn some little tips and tricks to actually make your hands a little bigger than what they actually are. Well, part of that is really dropping your thumb in the back of the neck. So many guys who have smaller hands play with their thumb up here, which is tough. That's limiting anybody. But if you drop your thumb in the back of the neck like this, the lower you go, the wider you can stretch your hands. Also, changing just the angle. You might need to angle your fingers a little bit more. I know in books it's taught to be like straight on with the frets, but you know what? You got to work with what you got sometimes. So maybe angling your hand a little bit or pointing your fingers different ways. There's lots of ways around having smaller hands. I would just try to incorporate some of that stuff. Alright, and that is going to do it for us here today, guys. So I'd be curious to know some of those ideas that you have that are myths that you think have been debunked, or maybe you've debunked them yourself. And also, don't forget to check out my membership while it's on sale if you want to get all the guitar courses, come to the Zoom Hangouts that we have, do all that stuff. The Zoom Hangout is coming up here very soon at the end of the month, so you can hop in that if you want to. So check that out. That's all linked down below, and I will see you all next time. Bye, homies, and see ya!